Amelia Earhart, a name synonymous with courage, ambition, and the uncharted skies, remains one of the most enigmatic figures in aviation history. Her disappearance in 1937 during an audacious attempt to circumnavigate the globe has captivated the world for nearly 9 decades. This is no mere ghost story whispered over the vast Pacific. It's a saga of a fearless woman who defied gravity and societal norms only to vanish without a trace. For 88 years, the ocean kept its secrets until 2025 when a sonar ping and a glint of metal on the ocean floor hinted at answers. This comprehensive exploration delves into Earhart's life, her final flight, the decades of speculation, and the groundbreaking technological breakthrough that may have finally unraveled one of history's greatest mysteries. Born on July 24, 1897 in Akeson, Kansas, Amelia Mary Earhart grew up in a world where women were rarely seen outside traditional roles. From an early age, she displayed an adventurous spirit, climbing trees, collecting insects, and dreaming of a life beyond the constraints of her time. Her fascination with aviation began in 1920 when she took her first flight at a Long Beach, California air show. That 10-minute ride changed her life. She began taking flying lessons and in 1921 purchased her first plane, a second-hand Kennerter she nicknamed the Canary. Earhart's ascent in aviation was meteoric. By 1928, she became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean as a passenger, earning international acclaim. But Amelia wasn't content to be a passenger. In 1932, she made history again by completing a solo transatlantic flight, becoming the first woman and only the second person after Charles Lindbergh to do so. Landing in a pasture in Northern Ireland, she stepped out of her Lockheed Vega to a stunned farmer, cementing her place in history. Earhart's achievements weren't limited to one flight. She set multiple speed and altitude records, including the women's record for flying at 14,000 feet in 1922 and the first solo flight from Honolulu to Oakland in 1935. Her leather jacket, cropped hair, and confident demeanor made her a cultural icon, challenging stereotypes about women in a male-dominated field. She wrote books, gave lectures, and co-founded the 99s, an organization for women pilots that still exists today. But Earhart's ambitions stretched beyond records. She sought to redefine what was possible. In 1937, at the age of 39, she announced her most daring plan yet, to become the first woman to fly around the world following the equator, a grueling 29,000-mile journey. This wasn't just a flight. It was a statement of human potential, and the world was watching. Earhart's round-the-world flight was meticulously planned. She chose a Lockheed Model 10 Electra, a state-of-the-art twin-engine aircraft customized for long-distance travel. With a wingspan of 55 feet and a cruising speed of 190 miles per hour, the Electra was equipped with extra fuel tanks to handle the marathon journey. Her navigator, Fred Noonan, was a seasoned expert in celestial navigation, having charted routes for Pan American Airways Pacific flights. Together, they were a formidable team. The route was ambitious. Starting in Oakland, California, they would fly eastward across the United States, South America, Africa, Asia, and Australia before tackling the vast Pacific. The final legs included stops in Law, New Guinea, Howland Island, Honolulu, and back to Oakland. Howland Island, a tiny coral atoll just 1.5 miles long, was a critical refueling stop in the middle of the Pacific. Its isolation made it a navigational needle in a haystack. Earhart and Noonan departed Oakland on May 20, 1937. Beginning their eastward journey, they crossed continents, battled mechanical issues, and navigated treacherous weather. By June 29, they reached La New Guinea, having completed over 22,000 miles. The next leg to Howland Island was the most challenging, a 2,556-mile flight over open ocean with no landmarks. On July 2, 1937, Earhart and Noonan took off from Law at 10 a.m. local time. Their plan was to fly to Howland, where the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Itasca was stationed to guide them in with radio signals and smoke plumes, but the Pacific was unforgiving. Cloud cover, unreliable radio communication, and the Electra's limited fuel capacity created a perfect storm of challenges. At 7:42 a.m. on July 3, Earhart's voice crackled over the Itasca's radio. "We must be on you, but cannot see you, but gas is running low." At 8:43 a.m., her final transmission came, "We are on the line 157 to 337. We are running north and south." Then silence. No distress call, no debris, no trace of the Electra or its passengers. Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan had vanished. The disappearance triggered an unprecedented search effort. President Franklin D. Roosevelt authorized a massive operation costing $4 million, equivalent to over $80 million today. The U.S. Navy and Coast Guard deployed 9 ships, including the battleship USS Colorado and the aircraft carrier USS Lexington, alongside 66 aircraft. They scoured 250,000 square miles of ocean around Howland Island, an area larger than Texas. Radio operators listened for signals and pilots scanned for wreckage, but the Pacific yielded nothing. No oil slick, no floating debris, no sign of life. The search was a logistical nightmare. Howland's remote location combined with the Pacific's depth and currents made finding a small aircraft nearly impossible. After 2 weeks, the official search was called off on July 19, 1937. Earhart and Noonan were declared lost at sea, but the world wasn't ready to let go. Earhart's disappearance wasn't just a tragedy, it was a cultural phenomenon. She was at the peak of her fame, a symbol of progress and possibility. Her face graced newspapers. Her books inspired millions, and her courage reshaped perceptions of women. To lose her so abruptly, with no answers, turned her story into an obsession. The public demanded explanations, and in the absence of facts, theories flourished. The most straightforward theory was that Earhart ran out of fuel and crashed into the Pacific near Howland Island. The Electra carried 1,100 gallons of fuel, enough for about 20 hours of flight, leaving Law with a full tank. Earhart likely had 4 to 5 hours of fuel left when she sent her final transmission. A crash into the ocean would explain the lack of debris, as the plane could have sunk to depths beyond the reach of 1930s technology. Yet, despite decades of searches, no wreckage was found near Howland, leaving this theory plausible but unproven. Another theory suggested Earhart veered off course and landed on Nikomoro, an uninhabited atoll 350 miles south of Howland. The International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery, TIRE, championed this idea, citing artifacts found on the island in the 1940s, a woman's shoe, a sextant box, and bone fragments. Some speculated Earhart and Noonan survived as castaways, but DNA testing in the 1990s and 2000s found no conclusive link to either. A 1940 British survey of the island found no aircraft, and the theory remains speculative. As World War II loomed, some theorized Earhart strayed into Japanese-controlled territory in the Pacific and was captured as a spy. A 2017 photo purportedly showing Earhart and Noonan in Japanese custody surfaced, but was debunked when records proved it was taken in 1935, 2 years before her flight. No credible evidence supports this theory, but it fueled decades of intrigue, especially during wartime tensions. The most sensational theory claimed Earhart survived, returned to the U.S., and lived under a new identity as Irene Bolam, a New Jersey housewife. A 1970 book, Amelia Earhart Lives, popularized this idea, but Bolam sued for defamation and photographic and documentary evidence disproved the claim. It remains a footnote in the saga, dismissed by historians. The enduring question: each theory had its champions, but none answered the central question: where was the plane? Expeditions to the Pacific from the 1980s to the 2010s used sonar, submersibles, and divers, but found nothing definitive. The ocean's vastness and depth seemed to mock every effort. For 88 years, the mystery persisted, a puzzle with no pieces, until 2025. In 2025, a multidisciplinary team of oceanographers, aviation historians, and data scientists launched a bold new effort to solve the mystery. Unlike previous searches which relied on educated guesses and limited technology, this team leveraged the power of data integration and artificial intelligence. They compiled every piece of information about Earhart's flight: radio logs, weather reports, fuel consumption estimates, Noonan's navigation notes, and even psychological profiles of the crew under stress. This data was fed into a unified probabilistic model, a sophisticated algorithm that accounted for variables like wind drift, radio signal strength, and likely decision-making under duress. The model didn't speculate.